Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to the Upper Room. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from Julie. Let's listen to what Julie has to say.
Hello, Lloyd. My name's Julie. I am a partner of an ex-JW in a similar situation to the conversation I heard you having earlier on with a partner of an ex-JW. My husband, who I married earlier on this year, was disfellowshipped a long time ago, but still carries the scars, I believe, of the regime cult that he belonged to. He's recently lost his son, or both his children actually, and we have been support for each other, walking through the trauma of that for the last 18 months. Prior to that, I was already experiencing a pushing and pulling situation within our relationship, which I can only describe as like a wall, a barrier between us, which greatly saddens me because I know that he loves me dearly, and would argue that we don't need to have that intimate relationship. What my question really is to you in this situation, because it's too big for me to even discuss on here, is there a support group for partners of ex-JWs, as I feel we too need guidance and support? I can support him to a point, however, I need support too, because I struggle daily with rejection from a person who says that they love me greatly. Sorry, I hope that this has come over okay. Thank you.
It has come over okay, and I really do sympathise with your situation. I think it's a very common situation. I mean, you're responding to a similar voicemail. I can't quite remember which one it would have been, but there are many voicemails that I get from people who have never grown up as Jehovah's Witnesses themselves, but they are affected by the organization and its policies because they are in relationships with people who did grow up as Jehovah's Witnesses or did spend some time as Jehovah's Witnesses, and it can be a traumatic experience just being in the life of someone who has been raised or has spent time in that situation or under that control. So it's a worryingly common thing. In answer to your question, is there a group that's been set up specifically to assist those whose partners or significant others have been impacted by Jehovah's Witnesses? The answer is not that I'm aware of. I guess if you're watching this video and you're aware of such a group, please indicate in the comments. I'd be grateful for any suggestions from the viewers, but I'm not aware of there being anything, and I think there should be. I agree with you that the issues that you're facing are pretty unique, and by the way, it says an awful lot about your love for your partner that you have stood by his side and continue to try to understand him and try to support him, even after all this time, and even after going through some incredibly challenging and emotional situations. It sounds like you've had many difficult conversations and many things that will have put a strain on your relationship. And the fact that you're still here and you're still wanting to understand him says an awful lot about how much love you're bringing to the relationship and how much value you're bringing to this person's life. So good for you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. It's a beautiful thing when someone can love a person so much that they're willing to fight through all of this, fight through all of these nonsensical beliefs and teachings and rules that continue to have an impact on someone years or decades after they've left. I've heard of partners in similar situations saying, well, why don't you just move on? You know, this happened, this terrible thing happened, I admit that it's terrible, but move on from it, you know? And if only it were that simple. If only it were that simple. What people don't quite realize, or what some people don't quite realize, is that we're talking about trauma. We're talking about religious trauma syndrome. So this isn't something where you can just snap your fingers and tell someone to snap out of it. It doesn't work that way, and you understand that. And you would appreciate being in a community of others who are in your situation. If such a community doesn't exist, it certainly should exist. And maybe somebody watches this video who's in your situation perhaps, and they think, I'm going to start this. Let's get this started. It needs to start somewhere, and it needs to start with someone. Maybe you personally, Julie, don't have the time and the bandwidth, because here's the thing, it's one thing to say something and say, hey, we should have this, and it's another thing entirely to devote, you know, all the time and energy needed to get such a thing up off the ground. So it's perfectly understandable if you don't have the bandwidth to do that right now, but maybe someone watching this does, if it doesn't already exist, which again, maybe someone's going to come to our rescue in the comments. But if it doesn't exist and you're watching this voicemail video and you've been in this situation and you perhaps have the energy and the organizational skills to put something together, I think there's a market for it, you know, that there's clearly a lot of people who share Julie's struggle. And if you take nothing else away from this video, Julie, I'm going to tell you what I tell so many people who call through with these voicemails. It's the minimum I can tell you, which is you're not alone. And you'll see that immediately when you look through the comments. There will be people commenting who are saying, yes, I'm in Julie's situation. And there immediately you've got something, even if it's just YouTube comments that you can reply to, that's at least something, isn't it? And I like to think that's a unique way that these voicemail videos can bring people together. It's something I feel very privileged to be able to provide through this platform, is just a space where people can relate to each other and people can watch a video or a voicemail, whatever, and think, yeah, this speaks to my situation. And quite often they'll leave a comment describing what they're going through and people will reply. So this is sort of a community, but I get it. We could do with perhaps something that's a little bit better organized, where there can be events and online kind of Zoom meetings and that sort of thing, because people need to be able to express these things in perhaps more detail sometimes and share more than simply just a comment on a YouTube video. So hopefully just by saying all that, I've sown a seed. But Julie, all that remains is to say, please know that you're not alone. Stay with this. And remember that no advice that I give you on these videos can take the place of a professional therapist or a professional mental health practitioner. I'm just a guy on YouTube. It could be, you know, you mentioned dealing with rejection or feelings of rejection. Those are things where perhaps you really need to, if you haven't done so already, pursue some help with your mental health, because that sounds rough. It sounds like something that could be extremely draining on you and your happiness. So thank you so much for leaving this message. If you would like to leave a voicemail, don't forget that you can go to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want me to play your message on this channel. But that's all I have time for. Thank you so much for watching.